In today's video, I'm going to go over the 4 things I learned while training for and completing my first marathon. I completed my first marathon on April 16th, 2023 at the Go One More marathon hosted by Bear Performance Nutrition, and I ran that marathon in 5 hours and 29 minutes. Now, on a lot of people's accord, that's not very fast, and I agree, it's not very fast, but that was never my intention or my goal. My goal was, honestly, this year is just to finish a marathon, okay? So we're gonna go to lesson number 1 that I learned is you need to sign up for a race. I have been talking about running a marathon for the better half of, I think, 4 years now. And I would start to train a little bit, maybe it would last a week or 2 weeks, and then I'd fall off. And then I'd do it again a year later, and then it'd fall off, and then again and it'd fall off. So this time, what was different is I signed up for a marathon before I even started to train. That way I had a deadline and something that I knew I had to hit to get me to motivated, to get me to get my butt off my couch and to start putting the miles in on my feet. Unfortunately, the marathons that happen in Austin are normally the Austin Marathon and the 3M, and those happen at the end of January, early February. Now, I've decided in 2023 in January that I was going to run for a marathon, so I knew that I couldn't sign up for those because therefore I had no training. Anything else would be in the fall coming up, and that was too far for me to think about training for 8 months for something. Just seemed a little daunting. So thankfully I found this Go One More marathon that was popping up in April. I had 15 weeks to train for it, and I was able to register, pay for it, get it out of the way, and that in turn motivated me that I knew I had to put the miles in under my feet to be able to finish my first marathon. Now, my training into the marathon, I didn't necessarily follow a specific plan where I purchased a plan or had a coach, but I used the resources I had around me. One of our coaches here at Central, Allison Outlaw, is super, super knowledgeable in the running, long distance aerobic style. So I would bounce ideas off of her and get her feedback. So basically I ended up doing 3 to 4 days of running. 2 to 3 of those days were shorter distance, maybe anywhere from 3 to 5 miles. And then on Sundays, I would run a long distance run for that day. I started out with my mileage being 10 miles for the week to 15 miles from the week. And then from there, I pretty much increased it by 10% to 15% of my mileage increase each week, which basically meant that my long run on Sundays went from starting at 5 miles as my long run to ending at 15 miles being my long run leading up to the marathon. Now, my training was not perfect, okay? It was not ideal. I went on spring break. I honestly took 2 weeks off of training where I didn't run at all. So I would not suggest that, okay? But if your goal is just to finish, and something comes up, that doesn't mean that I came back defeated, that I couldn't do it, all right? That was the key thing there as well. So looking back for training, would I have hoped that I ran longer than 15 miles? Yes. I don't think I knew what my body was going to feel like post 15, and I definitely felt it on the marathon. So if you can get your training run before marathon up to, I'd say, 18, 20 miles, I think that would be ideal. The second thing I learned training and completing a marathon is pacing, okay? Knowing that you're going to be running for a very long time, a very far distance, pacing is important and is key. Now, when I went into my long runs on Sunday, I was very conscious of what pace I was doing. I was trying to go at a pace where I felt like I could have a conversation and keep moving. I found that a 9:30, 10-minute per mile pace was a little too fast for me. I would get winded after, 3 or 4 miles. I found that a good between 11 to 12-minute mile pace for me was ideal and that I could complete without stopping or catching my breath or whatnot. So that was my training kind of long run pace for that. Now, fast forward to the day of the marathon. I have 300 people. It's a smaller marathon. I have 300 people around me. Gun goes off, 3, 2, 1, boom. You're out and about. And I thought I was Ferrari. I took that first half marathon and I just followed this guy and I was like, he is my rabbit. I'm going to just stay with him and he's going to take me to the finish line. But here's the thing. On a marathon in this race, the finish line was just your turnaround to go back and to do your other second half of your half marathon to complete it. So I completed my half marathon at 2 hours and 20 minutes, which ended up being about a 10.5 minute per mile pace. And I felt great. That was only 6 minutes off my PR half marathon time that I did, after college, probably 2011. So I was feeling good about myself. I get to mile 15. I'm still feeling great. That was the furthest I've ever trained. I remember calling Gabby, my wife, and being like, hey, I actually feel pretty good. This is pretty amazing. And then it all went downhill, okay? Because I thought I was Ferrari, but really I'm just a Fiat, okay? I'm just meant to go. So about mile 18 is when the wheels started coming off, and it then turned into a walk jog for about 18 to 22, and then 22 hit in, and then it was a full-on walk the rest of the way for 4 miles, all right? So maybe if I were to do one again, not saying that I am, but I would probably pace myself a little bit slower on that first half marathon to kind of help build into on that second half marathon. The third thing I learned training for and running a marathon is nutrition is key, especially on race day. Now, I've been told that, and I heard it in the background in my mind. So when I would go on these longer runs, I would pack gummy bears. I never really was a fan of the goos that runners have, but I now know why they are so important, okay? Let's go back to my marathon I'm running. I get to mile 18 when I have to walk. Now, they have nutrition on the course, okay? About every 2.5 things, they either have water, they have Go One More, which is a carb drink, or they have electrolytes. And I always chose the carb drink or electrolytes. But I think I needed more because I didn't know what my body would feel like after 15 miles, because that's the first I trained. I definitely think I was putting out more salts than I was taking in. So come mile 22, full on hamstring cramp set in, calf cramp set in. I have never really felt that before. When runners would say, oh, I cramped up on my run, I was like, it's got to be a weird feeling. I don't know what that feels like, but it does not feel great. Okay, you are incapable of running. I feel like you would go so far and you'd be like, all right, I got a good song in, let's try to run to the next pole or the next thing. I start to feel my calves and they just seize, and then it would go from there. So that's why the walking strategy came in, but I couldn't walk too fast, otherwise they still cramped up. I had to walk at just the right pace. All right, but we still got it done. So if I were to do that over again, I would definitely take things with me. I'm wearing one of those runner vests with either salt tabs, sodium, element, something that I could take in between the two, the aid stations, and that it could be dependent on me when I wanted to take it, not be up to when the next station was. I think I definitely needed it a lot sooner than every 2.5 miles. The fourth thing I learned training for and running a marathon is running is pretty much mostly mental, okay? When I'm getting to that 22-mile marker and I know I have 4.2 miles left to go and I'm walking at this point, I'm just thinking one foot in front of the other, okay? One foot in front of the other. Because I didn't necessarily have a goal time, I wasn't too worried about when I would finish, but I just needed to finish, all right? Now, on this marathon, it was different. There was no spectators, okay? It's just you on a country road in Texas. Thankfully, it wasn't too hot. It was pretty breezy. There were trees to shade most of the course, which is really nice, but it's really just you out there. Because there's only 300 runners, there wasn't a whole lot of people walking or running next to you. By this point in time, when it's five hours in, you would see, someone walking, a good 800 meters in front of you. You maybe see someone walking 400 meters behind you, but it's just you. It's just you in the road and your grit and your determination to finish. Now, I'm not going to lie. There are lots of times when a ATV would go by or a truck would pass, and I would think in my head, just pick me up and take me to the finish line. And then I would have to pull it back in my mind and be like, no, Jess, you need to finish this. If you get picked up by one of these trucks and carried on, you're going to feel so defeated. You're going to just hate yourself for that. And you're going to be like, well, I'm going to have to do this all over again. So you're only 4 miles from the finish line. Just keep going. All right. So that is something I definitely learned, and I don't think I would have learned that if there were spectators and crowds all around cheering and, you know, pumping you up. Being out there on the road all by yourself, just you know, in the pavement to the finish lines, you know, it was a whole different experience that I didn't know I was getting into. But I'm definitely glad that I experienced it, because, you know, you can always do more than you put your mind to. You know, thinking of running 5 miles without stopping before training for this marathon was just like, wow. When I hear people run like, I just ran 5 easy miles today, or I ran just 3 easy miles today, I always think like, man, that sounds tough. But then once you train and you get into it, you're like, okay, yeah, now it's not that bad. Okay, it's all perspective. It's all perspective. It's all training and consistency, and your mindset around it. So those were the 4 things that I learned, guys, training for and running my very first marathon. Am I going to put the 26.2 sticker on the back of my car? You betcha. I earned it. All right. I don't think I'll ever run another one. Not at this moment in my life. I'm like, yep, check, did it. It was on my bucket list. But I can see myself and potentially either having at fall or the beginning of next year when it's in Austin is doing a half marathon and trying to break my PR time of 2:14. All right, I would love to do a sub 2 hour half marathon, train for that, complete that. So that may be on my next list. All right, but I'll keep you guys staying attuned. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.